By the time this episode goes live Monday evening, Alex Ovechkin just might be the all-time scoring hockey player in NHL history. As we record here today, Saturday afternoon, he just had a 2-goal night against the Chicago Blackhawks, tying Wayne Gretzky at 894 all-time. So just needs one more goal to be the sole all-time goal-scoring leader in NHL history. Next game is live tomorrow at 12:30 against the Islanders. So that'll have been yesterday at the time this airs. I plan to watch that game, and I'm hoping to witness history. Speaking of history, while not comparable to the NHL record at stake, this is episode 3 of the Who's That Driver podcast. I am your host, Zach Rogers, and we've got another great guest on tap for today. I'd like to welcome a great friend of mine, Mr. Dunn LaPradd. How are you doing today, Dunn?
I am doing fantastic. I hope you all doing good as well, Zach, and everybody else watching this podcast.
Yes, sir. So happy to have another great guest. We just actually had a race last night in the Fuel Sportsman Series, which I unfortunately got bit by a little bit of goofy track geometry near the outside wall on the front straightaway at Trenton Speedway. And of course, the race went green to the finish after I spun it down pit road. So congrats on your win last night. I wish I could have got to fight you for it, but congrats nonetheless.
Yeah, thank you. But although I had no business of winning that one, to be truthful.
It'd be like that sometimes, you just kind of win. You get lucky sometimes, and I typically have found that I tend to just dominate. So I either dominate and win, or dominate and something happens. So I just tend to lead laps for whatever reason. But yeah, that was going to be a fun one if at the beginning it had just gone green, because I was just going to clutch the entire run so that I could make it on a one-stop. Otherwise, with the shifting and everything that we were doing, it was going to be an easy 2-stop. So I just decided I'll just start clutching. I wasn't losing too much time to Apollo or Nikki, so it was going to be interesting if it had gone green, but yellows were left on, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was doing the same thing, clutching at the very beginning, except I was at the extreme levels of clutching and saving more so than you and some of the other drivers were.
Yeah, I saw you on the F2 relative. You were like another, I think, 3 seconds back on the F2. I was like, oh man, he's really saving. He's gonna try to maybe save all he can on the first run and then just go on the second run or something. But yeah, that would have been fun. But it was still a pretty good race. I liked the track. The setup drove good. It was a little loose on exit off of 2, so that was fun. But
Yeah.
yeah. So that was last night. That was fun. So for those who haven't heard the podcast before, we delve mostly into NR 2003 stories. This is actually the first time I've been able to just recap a race from a previous night, so that's fun. Dunn was not at Fast on previous Sunday from today, as he was at Martinsville, and traffic be nightmares, right, Dunn?
Yeah, but that's just Martinsville. I mean, no matter where you go, you're always going to get stuck. I mean, there's really not many places you can get out of Martinsville, unlike a lot of tracks like Richmond, Charlotte, and such.
Yeah, Richmond, I've been to Richmond once, and I remember that there are basically roads like all around the track. So, I mean, there's multiple exit points for sure. So, yeah, but Martinsville, of course, I'm sure it's very limited with where it's located.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, big time. I've been to Martinsville. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. I think I've been to Martinsville 8 times in my life, and I could definitely confirm that one.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so before we go into more NR 2003 stuff, we'll just preface this with a little bit of motorsports questions for you. So the first question is, what got you into motorsports? Who was your first favorite driver? if they're still racing now or if it's changed, and your favorite form of motorsports.
Well, when I was like a baby and a kid, I anything with wheels, I was just into, whether if it was NASCAR or monster trucks or diecast, I would play with them like no tomorrow, like all the time. And I remember my parents tell me this a couple of years back. You know how when you are a baby, like your parents would give you like letters you had to spell out to learn how to spell words and stuff like that. And the very first word, I don't know where I ended up getting it. I guess it was just for watching a lot of NASCAR when I was a baby. But the very first word that I ever spelled, the very first word that I ever spelled was NASCAR. And my parents were like, oh boy, we're in trouble. That's what they told me. So that was pretty much what started it all for me. And my favorite driver growing up was Jeff Gordon. I have all sorts of Jeff Gordon diecast and toys and stuff like that. And yeah, he was always my favorite driver growing up. And ever since he retired, my favorite drivers. I don't know if I really have a favorite. I just been more so like I like a lot of drivers now, like Ryan Blaney, Alex Bowman, Tyler Reddick, Bubba Wallace, um, and Denny Hamlin, um, and so on. Yeah. And my favorite, honestly, I like all sorts of motorsports, stock cars, open wheel, a little bit of dirt, um, and road courses. I like kind of everything when it comes to motorsports. Just anything with wheels, practically, I'm in it.
Absolutely. And speaking of some dirt, motocross is actually up in my area this weekend. They're racing at Gillette Stadium. So I saw a little picture of a track work in progress from this morning. So, motocross was always fun to watch on a Speed Channel. It always happened to be on after school for me. So I was totally the same way. Anything with wheels, motocross, monster trucks, Formula One, IndyCar, you name it. Like I was into it all the same. And I was a bit of a Gordon fan at one point, I believe, because I did have some Gordon hats growing up. I also had one of the rainbow jackets, like kid size rainbow jacket growing up. So yeah, I was totally there with you as a Gordon fan, but I think I leaned a little closer towards Junior.
Oh boy, Junior fan here a lot.
Yeah, I was all over the place though for sure. Like Junior, Gordon, um, maybe a little Tony at the time. And then I don't really remember I didn't really fixate on anyone until Austin Dillon came around, but that boat's kind of sailed. And I liked Truex for a while, for a good long while. But yeah, I'm kind of stuck with Kyle Busch and Denny and Ross right now. And Silich, though, is probably going to be my next guy to root for here coming up because I need someone to just pick and be like, that's my guy for 20 years, and I don't have to worry about them retiring.
Yeah, ain't that the truth?
All right, so with the preface out of the way, let's get into the big question. Uh, First, how long have you been in the community, and how did you get into the community of NR 2003?
Yeah, so I'm gonna backtrack on that some. So when I was, as a kid and a baby, I s- I like to play NASCAR stuff, and my father, believe it or not, my father got me the NASCAR Racing 3 game when it came out in like 1999. And keep in mind, I was 3 years old at that time. And I remember playing it on the keyboard on their computer, and I was just having a ball playing it all the time. And then NASCAR Racing 4 came out, and I was really addicted into that. And when I was in kindergarten, this would have been 6. I would have been 6 at that time. My father, well, might have been my parents, either either way, they got me the NASCAR Racing 2003 season game when I was 6 years old when it came out. So I've literally and figuratively had it in my hands since then. And as far as how I got into like the community, it was really through a lot of YouTube videos that I used to watch growing up. There would always be like crash comps or league highlights videos and stuff like that. And I like in August of 2009, I created like a YouTube account, and I just started signing up to like all of the sorts of these offline uh leagues on and off, and uh and then I was kind of more active, at least within the community, doing things like I was mostly doing like offline stuff at that time, to begin with. So um yeah, so that's kind of really how I got my foot into the community.
That's really crazy because it's almost an identical parallel to how I got in to NR. I didn't get NR3, but I did get NR4, NR 2002, and 2003 all when they came out. And same way, like I was just messing on the keyboard, having a good time. Like fell out of it off and on. The only difference really is I did see like the YouTube crash comps and all that stuff, so I knew that you could like mod the game or get the updated cars and stuff, but I just didn't know like how to get them, and I didn't really have my own computer with internet access until I was 12, 13 years old. So I didn't get into the offline stuff really until about 4 years after you. It was probably about 2013 that I really started to get into stuff. So interesting parallel there, though, for sure, between the both of us. Pretty much kind of got into it the same way.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely really interesting back there too, because there were all sorts of leagues out there, which still all sorts of leagues out there for sure. But a lot of people back then have moved on, and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean that's really the biggest thing is just how much has changed since then too. Like it's just 16 years ago, I never would have thought that I would see everything that this game would be capable of nowadays. It's just like, man, like time flies by, and it's crazy how much how much this community and so much you can do in this game. It's just unlimited amount of possibilities.
Yeah, I remember we used to have a lot more websites. Like 10 years ago, you had racing graphics, you had mass graphics. Though when I got internet, mass graphics had kind of already died, unfortunately. But you had like racing graphics. You had obviously sim racing. The sign as toxic as that forum could be. You still got Stunod, which is around now. Um, well, and then of course there were a ton of offline league forums, which was basically how everyone signed up. Before Discord came out in about 2017, I think everyone started to migrate to Discord.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's interesting when you look back how much, even for like offline leagues only, how much things have changed. And now when you look at online leagues, it used to always be Facebook group, Facebook group, Facebook group, and now, other than some older leagues which still mostly just use Facebook, online leagues have also migrated to Discord to use as well because it's just so much easier to organize things, to channels and all that stuff.
Yeah, and one thing I want to add too is back then as well, there used to be a website where you do a lot of your signups. It's a website called Full Motion. Have you ever heard of that one?
No, I've never heard of that one.
So Full Motion, it's a website that you can practically like you can create your own forms on there and customize your own form website. And most of the leagues that I know of back then had some form of like forum, and most of them, at least I think a lot of them, if not most, were on like a four motion. And that's where you did all your signups and things like that. And, it's, signing up for a league back then is much different compared to now, where it's you pretty much sign up through Discord most of the time anymore.
Right on. Yeah. Okay, so with a lot of that offline stuff as the background, how did you get into online, and what did your first online league race look like? So the number, the mod, the track, car count, etc.
I want to say, because I could tell you my first online race, not a league, but it's pretty humorous one. But I can talk about the league one first. I think it was, I want to say it was from a guy by the name of Mason Wellborn. It was before World Champion Online League existed, and this would have been in May of 2011. And it was like a 19 lap race at Talladega. I think it was just the original Cup mob. It was just me, him, a guy by the name of Ben Peterson, and I cannot remember the other person's name. I want to say it was Kyle Earnhardt, but don't quote me on that one. But that was just four of us, and yeah, I mean it wasn't really special. I mean the league kind of died pretty much shortly afterwards. I mean it was mostly just kind of a fun thing that we were doing. But my very first online race, not in the league. Oh my god, this this is a pretty humorous one. You're gonna want to hear this one.
Oh boy. All right, let's get it.
So, uh, so back then, we had, um, when I was in seventh grade, me, my brother, and my parents, we hosted this pool party at my house, at our house at the time, and I we invited this girl over, which I've known her since kindergarten through my brother because they were friends in kindergarten. And let's just say I might have like developed feelings for her in middle school. And I remember that day when the pool party was over, we were all hanging out, and I was trying to impress her in a stupid way by because she was a Jimmy Johnson fan. I got into NASCAR race in 2003, and I I got in Jimmy Johnson's car, and I, me being a stupid 12-year-old at the time, I typed in her name on the player info, and I was just showing her I'm doing this for you and stuff like that, and she was like, "Oh," kind of like, she didn't care. So fast forward to 2 months later, it would have been in November of 2009. Where there was this video from a guy by the name of Video Gamer for Life 68. He showed a tutorial on how you can get into the OpenSpeedway open loop lobby. You remember that?
Yeah, I
And
remember the OpenSpeedway open loop, but I never participated in it.
yeah, so I figured it out. And let's just say I went into the OpenSpeedway server using her name, and and I could tell you what car I was driving. I was driving the number 96 DLP Chevrolet that Tony Raines ran in 2006. And I remember I was like, "Oh my god, this is so amazing!" And then the very first lap in turn three and four, I wrecked like the back half of the field on purpose, and then I slowed down. I slowed down the next lap, and then I waited for the rest of the field to come by, and I basically paged the entire field, and I was laughing so hard. And then everybody in the chat was like, "What are you doing?" And they were like so mad at me that then like a couple seconds later, I immediately got ejected from the server using her name too. So that was that was I mean I was 13 at that time, and you do stupid things when you're a teenager.
Well,
But
I guess
that was without a doubt a memorable first online experience that I've ever had with the game.
well, I guess we can eliminate the future question of what's the dumbest thing you've ever done on track, because that takes the cake right there. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, and back then I was just more so a record. Like I didn't care a whole lot about racing, but shortly after that, I was like, all right, I'm not gonna be that person anymore. So
Yeah, right on. But I mean, you were just you know just having a ball. Didn't give a damn in the world.
nope, not at all.
All right. Well, so with the crazy shenanigans out of the way, how did you get your first online win?
Online league or online win in general.
Well, it could be league, could be just a special event or something. It don't really matter.
An online win would have been at OpenSpeedway, same track at Daytona 9. I mean, it was just, nothing special about that. It was my first online win in general, so that was nice. But I want to say my first ever league win, I do not remember the league name. I don't know if it was Carolina Classic or it might have been a different name. I don't remember it, but it was a league that ran the Aero 88 mod. It would have been late September 2011. We were racing at Pigsport, and I showed up there, one night. I didn't sign up or anything. Back then, you could probably, because you could probably join a server. They probably let you race just fine, but then there are like other servers and leagues that just ban you out or eject you outright because you didn't sign up or whatever, or you're just a who are you kind of person. And I remember qualifying on the pole, and I did pretty well in that race. This would have been my second ever race, and that was my very first ever online league when I won on with a last lap pass, and that really was a pretty big one for me, really, just to kind of, because I mean, it was my first ever online league win, and I was so excited at that time. So, and I was elated, and it was like, yes, I got to win. I was being cocky and all of that. So,
All right, on. Nothing wrong with a good win at a pigs track. Uh, so when you started or when you got that win, do you remember were you on wheel already by that time, or were you just still messing on keyboard since it was so early in your career?
I was messing on keyboard, but then I was still on keyboard at that time, but then I got into controller afterwards, and there have been a couple of times after that I was going back and forth between keyboard and controller because I wasn't quite comfortable with the controller yet. But once I got it figured out, it was like, it wasn't too bad. But that's not something I ever want to do again, just because controller, there's something about controller, man. I mean, the people who do it, I mean, I commend them for it. I respect them because, I mean, it was, oh boy. I mean, that was quite a let's just say it was quite a handful, I guess, to be on a controller at that time. So I'm never doing that again. I'm just glad that I got a G27 wheel and now I can don't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah, I remember I was mainly on controller when I started, and there were definitely some difficulties to like figure out. And then I think I jumped to wheel quickly after, but then there was like a one or 2 week period where I messed around on keyboard, uh, and I had some help thanks to Joven Anderson, and it was not fun either. But I'm curious if you recall what was your keyboard setup? Because Cody Lamas last week told me his, and I was like, wow, I never would have thought to set my keys up like that. So do you remember how you had your keyboard set up for like throttle steering and all that?
Oh boy, it's been a long time since I read on the keyboard. I mean, I know that, to start off, I used a lot of assists, but then I gradually, slowly but surely lessened the amount of assists over time. Um, until I got on a controller, which on a controller I was still using some assists, but maybe, not as severe, maybe not as, quite a lot as keyboard. But yeah, I don't exactly remember the numbers. I want to say it was, I think it's to start off like my very first ever race, I was using like 80% steering, back in 2009. But then as time goes on, I went down a couple percentage and stuff like that. At least from what I remember.
Okay.
That was really like what I really need the most was like steering assist. Brake and throttle, I can get with them, get along. I can deal with them fine. So,
So you mentioned not being comfortable with the controller. When you switched to wheel, what was one thing you struggled with?
what was the one thing that I struggled with wheels? It would have been this was in 2020 when I came back. I actually have had this wheel since 2010, believe it or not, but I just never used it because on my old computer it just did not work for some reason. But the one thing, I guess the one thing that I struggled with the wheel, if I can recall, but I guess is just I guess a steering input, that I was using too much steering and I had to learn over time to use less steering. But well, I mean, not really. I mean, it wasn't too bad in that sense. It was mainly just like, honestly, it was mainly just how to be smooth with it, and uh, because me being on the wheel, at that time, I mean, I wasn't like bad at it, so to speak, but I was definitely I needed some work to do, and after doing a lot of I was doing a lot of when I got back into it all in 2020, I was mostly doing like super speedway races all the time just to get comfortable with the wheel and get the basic fundamentals out of the way. And then as soon as those were over, I went into the short tracks and the uh intermediates and the road courses, and then I just got used my wheel, and I just got really better, and just I just figured it out pretty quickly of how to race on a wheel. It took a little bit, but I figured it out okay.
Yeah, I got you. So you mentioned when you came back in 2020, was there a period where you were taking a break from the game?
Yeah, so in 2016, I had to leave, not because not because I didn't want to, but um we were moving into a new house at that time, and because the new house that I'm still living in to this day, because we did not know how the internet would be at the new house, I really did not want to be the test dummy on that one and figure out how the internet would be, so I just never raced. But then I also factored in that I was going to college. I was doing, I was, I was working two jobs at the time. One of them, I worked for my family's car wash business. I was detailing cars, and then became a supervisor and manager. And, I was working outside all the time in those days, 8 hours or so, sometimes 10 hours, depending on, you know, 9 or 10, depending on the day. Um, then I was doing a fitness attendant at my local gym, and I was doing that 20 hours a week. Um, the car wash was practically my full-time job, well, part-time job while I was in college. Then I was going to the gym, working out 4 days a week, and I was doing karate 2 nights a week. So my life was very, very occupied between 2016 to 2020, and I got back in the game when COVID hit, in which everybody was locked down. But you know, I'm very fortunate. I mean, it's sad that COVID happened for sure. But on the other hand, had it not been for that, I don't know if I would have ever gotten back into the game. So
Okay, yeah, very interesting for sure. I remember when COVID happened, I was actually in the midst of my first break, and I was an essential worker, so I was still working every day of the week. So I didn't even really come back until I was ready to. But it's interesting to hear, you say you came back because of COVID, and then Mondays of Thunder was created in part because of COVID. So it's interesting how such a bad thing kind of has done a lot of like good in bringing some people back to the game, even not just probably exclusively NR, but like other outlets as well. I'm sure were
yeah.
reinvigorated because of the pandemic.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, and I never knew about the whole story of how Mondays of Thunder got created. That is very interesting.
Yeah, they're coming up on their 5 year anniversary here, I believe, at the end of this month. Keith Hughes just got his 100th career win at Mondays of Thunder. That's across all series that they have run. So I
Holy
really
cow.
appreciate I appreciate Matt Moss for keeping track of total wins combined. That's something I haven't done for myself personally yet. Is see how many wins I've gotten, whether it's NNSCRA, fast, fuel, the works. I haven't like tallied any of that stuff up, which is a lot to tally. Like every win I get, it's like, okay, well now, like that, if whenever I do finally get around to doing it, like I'm gonna have even more to tally up. So I should probably get around to it at some point. But
Yeah, I was tallying it up some too this morning.
do you keep track of your wins done or?
No, but I mean like uh I was I did kind of keep track of the wins. Well, I mean I if I remember them, yeah. I sometimes I do. I mean if I just remember it, I remember it by the replay and stuff like that. And I remember I counted all the wins for my first stint, which I mean, it may not be 100% accurate, but I think it's right about where I figured it is.
What's that number look like?
So for my first stint, I I want to say it was either 73 or 74. I'm not sure. I know it's somewhere in the 70s. And then in my second stint, when I came back in 2020 to now, um, I have a grand total of 110 wins. So if you add all of that combined, I have a grand total of 185-ish online league wins on in all 2003. But you also have to factor in that we'll take into consideration that I was on a 4 year hiatus between 2016 to 2020.
Hmm.
So had I not been for those 4 years that I was absent, I very well could have gotten well over 200 wins by now.
Or more. You never know. I mean, I was going crazy at the end of last year, racing at any league I could. I was racing like 6, 7 nights a week, and then I was winning like almost 4 or 5 of those nights a week at times. So when you
That's pretty. That's pretty much me right now.
when you start racing everywhere, and you get hot, and you get hot at that right time, and you just pop off. Really, I mean, September last year, I won 20 or 21 races in that month, and I was racing most nights. It was just one race a night, but there were some where it was like maybe two, depending what MOT was doing. But yeah, you get hot, and you start to go crazy. But I think that'll be personally my peak in this game. I don't think I'll ever race enough to win that much and get in the groove that much, but I still feel really good about my skills personally. So I'm happy that I was able to have the year I had last year, and I did win 100 races last year. So I don't know if many people can say that, as
No, not
crazy
that
as
I
that
can
is.
recall. Very hard to achieve. I'll say that much.
Speaking of things hard to achieve, I was trying to gun for 5 wins in a row on Sundays at Fast. Led most of that Martinsville race, but Jack Merkel and Randall just had it figured out a little better on corner exit, and that eventually let Jack get by me. And then I tried to pinch him a little through 1 and 2, but I pinched too close, and I kind of shot myself back up out of the groove a little, fell to third, and never could get back to him. So good win, Jack, if you're listening there at Martinsville on Sunday. That's the second time in a recent memory that I've won 4 in a row at Fast, and I was unable to get the 5 in a row, which in real life, only Bobby Allison and Richard Petty have ever won 5 races in a row, and Petty won like 10 in a row back in like the 60s. So it is very,
67.
very hard to do.
Yeah. And Martinsville, that's a very tough track. I mean, that's the one track that I could just never ever get it figured out. No matter like, I mean, even recently I was racing at IFAR a couple of weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. I qualified second, which it was 12 cars, which I mean, I mean I guess that's kind of what I expected. Not a lot of people like short tracks or Martinsville in general. But I led 100 laps and um, that was my car got really, really loose because I burned up my wheel, and then Gino Bononi got around me with 5 laps to go, and he won the race. And that was disappointing for me to not win that race because one, I wanted to because I had the dominant car, but two, I've always wanted to win at Martinsville, and three, it is my home track, so I have bias to say that I would have loved to win at Martinsville.
Yeah, speaking of home tracks, my home track is one that is made for the game, but not used that much. So if I see it being used, I kind of like need to. I've jumped at the opportunity to run it, and that's Seekonk Speedway up here in Seekonk, Mass. Ran it once many years ago in one of the NNSCRA Fun Leagues, and I really wanted to win it then, and I just uh, didn't have a good head on my shoulders then to really accomplish that. And then NNSCRA, funnily enough, ran it again late last year, and I was in a great position to win, and I couldn't avoid somebody that had spun on the backstretch, and that dropped me to third. And then there was a restart where I was second, but the guy on the inside used me up a little bit, sent me up out of the groove, and that was all she wrote. So haven't won at my home track yet, but New Hampshire's close enough.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever raced at that, not New Hampshire, but the how do you pronounce it again?
Seekonk.
Seekonk. Okay, thank you. I've never raced at Seekonk before. So I'm intrigued to try that out one day. If a league would ever race there.
It'd probably be a good for. They don't. Nobody really does them anymore. But a short track league would be a ton of fun. I feel like there's so many short tracks for the game.
Oh yes, for sure.
Now done.
Fictional tracks too.
Yeah. Now done. Your preferred number these days is 74, correct?
Y- Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So how did that come about? Because I was actually just looking through some old photos of mine, and I saw one of us racing Melon Car at Indy, and you were in the 8. So how did 74 become the number it is to you today?
Well, if I'm pretty sure you remember, you know a guy by the name of Sign On 44 on YouTube.
Uh,
Yeah,
maybe.
he does TM Master Cup
Oh,
Series
okay.
videos.
Yeah. Sign on. Yeah.
So he goes by Cooper, which shout out to Cooper. He's a really good friend of mine. I was watching, I grew up like watching his TM Master Cup videos all the time, and I still do to this day. When he uploads a new one, he's been doing it, and it's just forever now. And there's this one number 74, and it is owned by the Metro Suns in that TM Master Cup universe. But I just looked at that 74 one time. Uh, it was 2014. Like I really, really saw it like for the first time, and I mean, I saw it beforehand when it was around, but I didn't really think much of it. But when I saw that 74 and the style of it the very first time, it was just like that's the most beautiful number that I've ever seen in my life. It's old school in a way, but it's like the perfect kind of old school number in that sense. And yeah, I mean, I had never raced in the 74 until late 2020 when I started racing more leagues, and I just yeah, that's pretty much how I got into driving the number 74. That's just pretty much my number everywhere I go anymore.
Right on. Yeah, and of course, 47 for you at Fast because Drew Fast also likes to run 74 and he had first claim for it. But at least it's close enough, right? 47.
Yeah, I mean it's the same font and all of that. And the 47 is, they have that number in the TM Master Cup universe. So it's not all that bad. I mean, you just flip flop the numbers and hey, I mean it's still there is still a 4 and a 7 in the number, so and it's the same style, so.
Okay, done. So this is a question you might not have an answer for, but I like to ask it. Who was your first mentor on NR 2003? Now, when I say mentor, that could be someone who just, gave you advice attitude wise, like for mental preparation or for like, how to drive certain tracks, settings adjustments, the works. Like, who was your first mentor?
Believe it or not, I don't really know if I had a mentor, so to speak, because I just kind of just learned a lot of things. I pretty much learned a lot of things almost on my own. But I guess if there was one driver that I guess I could definitely tell you my inspiration as far as the drivers who's had the most success and stuff like that, if
Okay,
you're
yeah.
okay with that.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
The one guy that inspired me the most is a guy by the name of Ryan Williams. And
Okay.
he's a guy, and you know him, right?
Yeah, I remember him from FTF. Yep.
Yep, he used to create videos back in the day. He was known as Fast Fortress on YouTube, and he always upload crash cam videos and stuff like that. And he was one of the best at it. But like his driving, I just remember league videos out there that he either uploads or other people upload, or I just look on the Solstice Racing Forum you know or the Flatter Racing League, and he was just ungodly good like everywhere. Like you could put him like any mod or any track, he'll be good. Like you like any track, like he'll even put him if you put him at like a racetrack like Nürburgring, I'm sure that he can win in a heartbeat. Like he was that kind of a driver who not only knew how to be consistent, but he was also the kind of driver who knew how to be good everywhere and anywhere. And he won so many races and championships off of that. And I never got to race with him a whole lot, in which it would have been an honor to race more with him, whether if it was FTF or Solstice or any league that he was a part of. But yeah, he was definitely my biggest inspiration, and wanted to be like him as far as the success and being able to do well and be competitive anywhere. And I've always had that competitive nature in me. I mean, I don't know where it came from, but like when I was a kid, I used to play. Uh, when I was a kid and a baby, like playing games. Like if I don't win or something like that, I get pretty mad at myself, and I don't know why I was always like that, but I guess that was just part of my competitive nature that I wanted to become better. So I think that plays a big role into it as well.
The strive for perfection. The strive to be the
Practically,
best you can be. And, as you said, competitive. You, me, you can throw Nick Gunther into there as well. And, when you mess up, you screw up, you don't like it. You don't want to be screwing up. Like you want to be at the top. So yeah, I totally get it. The whole getting mad when you mess up.
not so much anymore these days. I mean, I could still get annoyed or pissed
Oh
off,
yeah.
but I mean, it's not as bad or as common as it is. And I think I've mellowed down so much in the last couple of months
Oh yeah,
that
absolutely.
it's just like okay, like even last night, because I mean, I'm pretty sure you saw it or heard about it as well. It was a guy by the name of Jason Stereo,
Yeah, I heard
and
he just didn't pay
yeah,
attention or
yeah.
something, from what I
No,
understand.
no, I mean it wasn't that. Like he was typing while he was driving. Like he had a black flag. I guess I don't know what he would have gotten a black. I guess he was supposed to be behind me or whatever. When we were going through that kick, basically turn three, and I was getting on the inside of him because I was good about to shoot right on past by him, and and then I just see him turn to the right, and I was like, okay. And then he just started turning right. He was getting loose and out of control, and I was like, oh boy, this is not good. I thought it was going to end my race. Then he squeezed me in the wall unintentionally, of course. But then I was like, okay, then not in like in a mad way or annoying way. That was just like I didn't expect that to happen. Like it was just out of nowhere that just happened, and needless to say, I had some left and right side damage, and I thought I was done, but fortunately, I only repaired it for like 4 seconds after I changed my tires, and I was good after that. Perseverance, really. So that's how I've always that's how I've always looked at myself as a driver who goes through a lot of perseverance and adversity, and no matter if like I could even have like I could even have a banged up race car that might, and it's not nowhere near close to win, but I'm gonna try my hardest to get back on the track and make the most out of it, salvage what I can get. That's how I've always viewed myself as.
Right on. Okay, so this question, I want you to go back a little bit. Um,
Okay.
right now, so the question is, who's your main rival, and that can be like a good rival, or like a I'm always getting into him rival. I would say right now, you and me, I consider you a good rival. So I don't want you to say anyone that we currently race with. So go back in the day a little bit. Can even be only like a 3 years ago. Who would you say your main rival used to be?
My main rival, that's a pretty easy one. It would be Tyler Mallon,
Yeah.
especially in Mellon car, and it's a good rival too, because in Mellon car, especially in the Cup Series, he and I were always there for the championship, and you know, even in like the full season points, like he and I would be like within just single point digits away from each other, and I mean he eked me out those 2 times. Because one of them I did not, because in season two I did not run the full season. But yeah, he was always like he's always a very tough driver to beat. I admire him and respect him for, you know, really for who he's become as a driver, just because, I mean, I think we can all agree that he's definitely one of the best at saving tires. I mean, he's far better at that than I am, so, and I probably ever will be, so.
Oh yeah.
He's a good rivalry. It's a good rivalry for sure. Probably the best rivalry that I've ever had, at least in my lifetime.
I would say for sure for me, Tyler was a great rival that I had at Bomb Squad early last year. Really pushed me to work on my setups and just practicing the game tracks to like get a real good handle on them. But I would actually probably go back a few years prior to that, and I would say Jovan Anderson is probably the best rival and friend that I've ever had. When he
Oh, for sure.
got me into open setup racing, and then even when we ran fixed setup racing, we were always battling around each other. So I would say, Jovan's been like one of the best rivals I've had on this game, but like currently not racing him as much as I used to. I would say, like you, Joshua Moyers, Jack has really gotten back to where he was
Oh yeah.
since
Oh
before
yeah.
he took his break. So he has definitely put himself at the front on a very consistent basis. So he is definitely probably one of the other people I would say is a main rival for me right now. Um,
Yeah.
and it's a ton of fun, right? Like they're rivals, but they're like competitively fun to race against.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Okay, so getting the good stuff out of the way, I want to know who was the first person you butted heads with?
Oh boy, that is the very first person I ever butted heads with. It would have gone back to Open Speedway. Here we go again with Open Speedway. Obviously we did the open loop stuff like that, and the very first guy that I could ever remember butting heads with was a guy by the name of J.W. Henderson. I don't think remember
No,
him, do you?
no
Yeah,
idea.
because I mean, a lot of people back in the day would know him. Yeah, he was one of the admins, by the way, but he was always like the one who really ruled with an iron fist, so to speak. Like he's not just like he's not just your ordinary open speedway admin. Like he was an admin that was very, very strict, but I also felt like at that time that he was a little bit too strict, and not only that, but I just think the way that he handled things was like off-putting to me a lot of times, and he and I had butted heads. I remember one time, like I just pretended that I was sick, and then one of the guys was like, "What? Why you get sick?" I was like, "Oh, I got H1N1 because H1N1 was a thing back then, back in 2009, and I got H1N1 because of J.W. Henderson, and then I ended up getting ejected from that. But he and I had a couple of run-ins, and he was really the first one that I ever had butt heads with. And I'm surprised. I mean, it took me long enough to get like banned from Open Speedway. You know, didn't get banned until March of 2011 because the amount of times that J.W. Henderson and I had butted heads, there have been times where I was just like, man, how did I not get banned from Open Speedway? You know, I mean, yeah, I mean, it was like I said, me being 13, 14 years old at that time. I mean, you say and do things you shouldn't be doing. I mean, if I was like, if I could go back in time right now, I would have like annihilated myself, would have punched myself in the face. I mean, yeah, there have been times back then where I feel like my anger towards J.W. Henderson or others might have been justified, but a lot of times it's also just me being a stupid teenager. So,
Well, we have to do the stupid shit to know not to do the stupid shit.
yeah, for sure. And oh yeah, I got a story about how I got banned from Open Speedway too. I remember this one now. So, uh, so it was March of 2011, and we were doing like a race, Open Speedway, open loop race at Daytona 9, and there was a car in front of me that like was bumping the car in front of them in the middle of the turn, and I was behind them. But I had a car right up my bumper, so if I let off, I would have gotten wrecked. Or if I had moved up, I would have lost all those spots. So I stayed, committed, and I couldn't really go anywhere. So needless to say, that created a big wreck, and then I ended up getting blamed for it. But then I made a YouTube video about it, and then I told one of my friends who posted a comment on my video, and I responded something to the effect. I remember what it was. I said, "It's open fairway," something to that. Yeah, that's what it was. And then I got back into the
Oh
server the
man.
next day. I got back into the server the next day, and it was not J.W. Henderson who banned me. It was a guy. It was Chad Goodstein, and he private messaged me in the game, and he was like, "Guess you are here to wreck." Not gonna happen. And the typed it in all caps, just Open Speedway admin style. You know how they have to type it all in caps. And then he said, "Go wreck, go back and wreck with your friends." Then he ended up ejecting me, and I was so told him I'm sorry, and he said, "I read what you posted. You are not sorry." And then I was trying to deflect any blame from me. Like I said, my brother was like, told me to type this down, but I ignore him, and he was like, "Apparently you didn't," and he was just going on, and he said what I did was bullshit, um, and he said you are done here, so. Yeah, he was that was the one time that I really screwed up. But then again, a lot of people did not like Open Speedway because of the things that they would do. I mean, that the guy that I was telling you about, Cooper or Sidon 44. He
Mm.
has like 2 videos dedicated to like OpenSpeedway crashes and stuff like that. So it was pretty fairly, I guess the common, opinion was that a lot of people did not like OpenSpeedway for various reasons. But I did get back into OpenSpeedway, back in September of 2011. Got on the good grades with the admins, and I was never had a problem since. So I never had a problem with Chad Goodstein or J.W. Henderson or anybody over there. So I guess it turned out all right afterwards.
Oh, that's a pretty good circle there. So we started, kind of talking about, your first Open Speedway story covered the dumbest thing you've done on track, and now that story covers the dumbest thing you've done, or you dumbest thing you've said or done after a race. So pretty cool that both the Open Speedway stories covered those questions without me even having to ask. I like that.
Oh, trust me, I have a lot of different stories and league and stuff like that. I wish we had more time. Holy cow.
Yes, indeed. So we'll get a few more questions here for NR, and then we'll move on to our end topic. So first, what race win or championship means the most to you?
The race win that means the most. I can answer the championship and the race win. The race win would have been Miller Cup Season 3 at Daytona opener. That would have meant the most to me because I was figuring out some things on my own back then, and I did not really know that I would have what it takes to be at the same level that I once was. But I made a pass for the win around Daniel Rodriguez for the win, 4 to go, and I had the help from behind. I was b-balled. I went to the outside and made the pass work and got the help, and that was pretty. That was a pretty big one for me. I mean, I was screaming just because that was the one win that I needed the most to get my mojo back going. Um, and the one championship that meant the most to me, um, would have been IMRC Cup Series Season 11, because that was a season that I feel like that I was probably the best at, even though I only won one race that entire season. But I was just like stupid consistent. Like, I mean, there was a point of time during the season where I started the top three. I remember like the stat that they have that I look back and I started in the top three in like 8 races in a row. And I had like the best average finish. I think I had the best average start by a long shot too. And I had most top fives, most top tens. I finished top 10 in every single race. And so that was a pretty big one for me. It would have been Melancholy Cup Season 1 that would have been the most important championship win to me ever. But things happened that night, and
No what ifs. No what ifs. You sent
yeah,
me down a rabbit hole too.
yeah, that would have been a pretty cool. That would have been a good one to win. That would have been the most important one for win to me. But I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it wasn't pretty or what happened that night, but you look back at it now, and it's what if.
I would say a race win that means a lot to me, and I don't know if I can really outline one specific win that just means the most out of them all. Like, there's obviously a few when you've won over 200 races on this game, but one win that I was actually like looking through all my photos earlier before we got in, because I was looking for races that we had some finishes in. But season 3 Meloncar Indianapolis, it was you, me, and Tyler Mallon. And I don't recall if I led the entire instant or if I led most of it, but I remember we all had to save gas for 21 laps. And I had to hold you and Tyler off at the same time. And I managed to do it. This was about almost 2 years ago now, in about a few weeks that this race
Yes.
happened. And I remember that was my at the time that was my 99th win on the game, and I was almost like, man, I wish this had been 100 because that was a I had to work for that one. I mean, it's one thing to hold you and Tyler off, but it was another thing to save gas at the same time. So that win means a lot to me.
You were doing all sorts of multitasking.
Oh yeah. Okay, so here's a fun one. And
Oh boy.
these don't have to all be together. They can obviously be separate. But so
Sure.
the question is, what is your favorite mod, your favorite track, favorite league to race at, and your favorite physics? And for the league, you can mention a league that no longer operates if you like.
So my favorite mod, that's a tough one because I mean there's quite a bit of mods that I like. Maybe like I don't know. Probably like maybe Cup 21 is probably my favorite. I don't know why. Maybe it is. I don't know. I don't know if I have a favorite on that one, but I think my favorite track, um, I would say Daytona because I won there the most, but it's a super speedway, so I don't really want to count that. But probably my favorite track to race at, the one that I do well the most at, would be the old Atlanta. And I always seem to do very well at old Atlanta. Like no matter what league I race at, I always seem to thrive the most at that track. I guess just because it's a tile one abrasive track, I think I just excel at that part, I guess. I don't know. Um, my favorite league to race in, I mean, there's all sorts of different leagues that I like the most. I don't really know if I have a favorite. I mean, I do like Melanchol when it was around, World Champion Online League when it was around back in the day. Southern Racing League, which was owned by Jonathan Feld back then. Well, it was owned by William Wilson uh, before they returned it under the different ownership. Um, Fast is one of my favorites as well. Really, all the leagues that I don't mind racing at that I just like because they're different in one way or another. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't really have a favorite. I just like a lot of leagues to race in, and Rolling Thunder Gaming is a pretty big one up there now too. As a league, one of the leagues that I like to race at, especially the Talladega Challenge Series. Oh my God, that's so much fun. It's going three wide racing constantly, and a lot of them drivers are very experienced and they're smart and they know what they're doing. I mean, that's a really fun league to race it, especially that Talladega Challenge Series. That is so much fun.
Yeah, I've had the privilege of racing. I think I ran one race a season or two ago, and I also got to do commentary with Seth for two of them. It's definitely a ton of fun. I wish they ran a few more tracks, but it's not called the Tally Challenge for nothing. So they have a ton of fun doing it, and it's nice to see a super speedway league successful like that today because it reminds me of when excuse me, Insomniacs had their super speedway league Friday nights, midnight going into Saturday, and they would get big fields for that, and they ran nothing but Daytona Talladega, and it was a blast.
Sounds a lot like OpenSpeedway Saturday Night Super Speedway league that they had back in the day too, where they would race close to midnight into Sunday.
All right. Well, there's a bit of an outro topic for NR. How many people have you met from the NR 2003 community?
It's a number that is the shape of an egg, zero.
Oh, you haven't gotten to meet anybody, really? No one's gone to Martinsville?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, people have gone to Munnsville, but I never like met any of them in person, and not because I didn't don't want to. I guess I just never really thought about, you know, like especially when I go to Munnsville, like I just want to go there, just watch the race and stuff like that with some of my friends that I'm going with, and and whatnot. I mean, I don't know. I guess that's just kind of me really on that part. I don't know. Yeah, I just never met anyone like in real life that are like in the community or were in the community. So
Oh, okay. So I've met a few people, but not too many. So that's just because I don't really go to a lot of races. But interesting, interesting. Okay, so
mhm.
moving away from NR 2003, do you have any other interests aside from motorsports? So, it could be music, movies, TV shows, something really uh, someone wouldn't even think about. So, what do you got?
Well, I do. So as far as music, I've always been a rock person. I've always listened to rock pretty much every single day of my life, practically. I never get over with rock. As a kid, you know, because my parents got me the PlayStation 2 when I was 6 years old. Um, and I started playing I played all sorts of racing games like NASCAR Thunder 2004, ATV Off-Road Fury 2,
Oh,
all,
yeah.
all of the sorts of games. And they all of them had like rock. And I was just like, you know, this is just made for me right here. With anything on wheels combined with rock, sign me up.
Yeah, those were the
So
that was the heyday of music soundtracks was like the early 2000s to like the end of the 2000s. That's when we had rock on like a ton of sports and racing games for sure.
yes, yes. I mean, bands like Sum 41, Foo Fighters, Jimmy Eat World, um, 3 Days Grace. I mean, you name it. And I'd say my favorite band, it would definitely have to be Foo Fighters. Because
Okay.
I admire what Dave Grohl is as a not only as a musician but as a person because his story is remarkable as far as what he had to go through when Kurt Cobain sadly passed away, and how that changed him as a person and having to form his own band, and I mean he's become the person that he is today and just remarkable guy. Great person on and off from what I've seen. And my favorite album from Foo Fighters, my favorite album ever would have to be The Color and the Shape. Because that album in particular resonates so much of me personally, personality and everything. And this the lyrics, a lot of the lyrics in them songs are very similar to me, what I've been through. And my favorite song ever would have to be Everlong in that same album by Foo Fighters. I mean, that when I first heard that song in 2009, I was just like, this is just made for me. It fits everything about who I am. And you could be happy. I feel like what's so unique about that song in particular is if you really want to be, if you're really happy, play that song. If you're like don't care, play that song. If you're like sad or depressed or whatever feelings that you have, play that song. It pretty much fits into any kind of emotions that really fits into what you're going through. And that song just means a lot to me personally as well, in a lot of ways.
I gotcha. Yeah, I have never really gotten into Foo Fighters too much, but I know a handful of like the radio hits. Any anything movies or TV show wise?
Uh, any kind of TV shows that I watch, if I just watch anything on TV, it's just sports, whether it be it's football, basketball, not so much baseball. It's not my favorite sport to watch. A little bit of hockey here and there. Um, racing, of course, if it's on there. Um, yeah, I mean, other than racing, like any sort of like any TV shows, like I just watch sports. I mean, there'll be times, I mean, there'll be times that I will watch like movies and stuff like that, but that was kind of like me growing up. I used to like watch movies all the time and not a whole lot anymore. I mean, I do have HBO, so I mean, and they always play movies like every day and every night and no matter what genre it is. So I'll watch some of the movies on there, and they're pretty cool to watch. I got into watching some of the Fast and Furious movies. I did not watch all of them. I need to, but I watched the original one that came out in 2001, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, so
Um, and then the one that came out in 2015-ish.
you gotta
This
watch them
was
in
after.
order. Gotta watch them in
Yeah,
order.
yeah, I need to. I definitely need to. You're not wrong on that one, but yeah, that's those are kind of what I like and watch and stuff
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
yeah. I was Okay, so let's see. The first, I'm trying to remember the first like racing car movie I would watch growing up. Wasn't even really a car movie, but it was the Blues Brothers because the Blues Brothers had police chase scenes in it, and as a kid, I was all about that. And they had
Yeah.
the big pile up and crash in that movie that was absolutely hilarious. Two big
Oh
crashes
boy.
in that movie actually, and that like definitely influenced me. But I would say the Hot Wheels World Race animated movie that came out in
Oh
'03.
yes. Oh
that
yes.
that was
That
like, okay, like I am full dive into racing stuff now. Like that was it once that came out.
believe it or not, I have the PS2 of the Hot Wheels World Race game to this day still. I played that a lot as a kid.
I had it for GameCube, and I also had the Game Boy edition, which the Game Boy edition it's like completely its own thing, which was pretty cool.
And as far as like any kind of games that I play, I mostly like other than at all. I mean, I don't play a whole lot of like I mean, I know I'm gonna sound it's gonna be like, oh no, because of what it is. But I do play a little bit of Roblox, but that's only because I do own like a racing league on there, and I that's the only thing that I do on there. And I mean, the community that I built on that one is, pretty good because I mean, there's no sort of drama or any kind of unnecessarily stupidity and stuff like that, and we have a good group of people, and I mean that's the only thing I do on there. But other than that, I would say the game that I've been playing the most that I really started to get into, thanks to Robert, uh, would be Counter-Strike 2. And I've always wanted to play that. I just could never get into it, because I used to watch all sorts of Lego Counter-Strike videos as a kid growing up, and when I finally started playing Counter Strike 2 back in late January of this year, I was like, you know what, this is it for me. Like I'm gonna play this game for a long time because it pretty much is everything I could ever. I just loved Counter Strike, watching the Lego Counter Strike stop motion videos as a kid, and just playing the game now. It I mean it makes me appreciate not only how popular Counter Strike is, but you know, just how much has changed, and because I mean they've been around for a very very long time from what I remember. So
Right on. Yeah, I don't play too many console games anymore. I feel like whenever I play them now, it's like it's fun to get into, but it just doesn't quite feel the same as it did when I was a kid growing up. So I have a Wii that takes the GameCube games that I still own. So there was like one, not this past winter that we're coming out of, but the winter before that, there was like a 7-8 week period where I was just playing nothing but MVP baseball 2005 for the
Yeah.
GameCube, and then I did play a little bit of Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2 again because I
Oh my
loved
God,
that
Need for
game.
Speed. I forgot. I forgot all about the Need for Speed. Need for Speed, Most Wanted, Carbon. Oh my God, those were the bomb to play.
Oh yeah, those so High Stakes and a Hot Pursuit, the first one of the first games, some of the first games they made. I had those for PC and I played the hell out of Hot Pursuit and High Stakes. I loved playing those games and that was on keyboard and that was just a total blast.
I remember. I think I played the Hot Pursuit one, if my memory serves me correct.
Yeah, funny enough, the Hot Pursuit tracks were also in High Stakes. High Stakes came out afterward and they kept those tracks around for that game. So High Stakes had like a ton of tracks in it. It was a ton of fun. But yeah, so Dunn. This was Dunn LaPradd here on Who's That Driver. Dunn, thank you for your time. Feel free now to shout out anybody in the community, anybody you consider great friend that you talk to now, or anyone that you haven't talked to in a while. Feel free to shout those names out now if you like.
Oh shoot, I will. Yeah, man, I really do wish we had more time for this because I got all sorts of all stories. Holy cow! But that maybe that'll be for another time.
I can always
Um,
have you on again down the line.
yeah, for sure. But a big, shout out goes to you for having me on. I never would have thought that this would happen because I don't think I've ever known anyone trying this until somebody else. But I guess that never materialized, and now you do it. So I, appreciate you for picking up the slack. Shout out to Jovan Anderson. Hope you're watching this, buddy. Want to give a big shout out to Mason Wellborn as well, one of my buddies back in the day when we would race together all the time. I talked to him pretty recently, just this week, and he seems to be doing just fine. Shout out to Jonathan Feld as well. I just, I know he went through surgery. I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday. So, hope you're doing well, buddy. Hope you get better soon. Um, shout out to boy, shout out to, you know, Ryan Williams for being one of the biggest like inspiration for me to become like to be I guess a better driver. I mean other people as well, but Ryan Williams is like up there as the biggest like reason like why one of the biggest reasons why I'm like, I've had this kind of success. Shout out to all the leagues that have ever existed and leagues that are around and still exist to this day. I appreciate you all for what y'all have done. Shout out to everyone in the NASCAR Racing 2003 season community, for being, a bunch of good people and stuff like that. And shout out to everybody for making me the better person that I am today.
Right on, everybody. That is Dunn LaPradd. I am Zach Rogers. You have just listened to Who's That Driver, episode 3, title at the time of this recording, To Be Determined. But thank you very much for listening, and hope to see all y'all come out and listen for next week's episode. It'll be episode 4. Hoping to get another great guest on for this podcast. It's been a blast so far and looking forward to all the episodes to come. So thank you once again for listening to Who's That Driver, and I will see you guys for the next one.